The Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between.
Well, hello again and welcome once more to the Pediatric Lounge. Today we have the pleasure of hosting Dr. Tuvia Maricano, a pediatric gastroenterologist in NYU Langone in Long Island. He became a doctor because he has always been fascinated by medicine and wanted to help people. He enjoys being a pediatrician because it allows him to watch the smallest patients grow up into mature adults with bright futures.
Hey, George. Nice to see you.
How you doing, Herb? It's Tuesday evening tonight, and we're going to elevate another great physician, a pediatric gastroenterologist here on Long Island, Dr. Maricano. He's world-renowned, very famous. We all love speaking to him because he has a great sense of humor. When he has the drug dinners, we go to see him. We don't care what the product is or what the lecture is about, but we want to talk to him because his jokes are amazing, and we're going to share some of those with you.
Oh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here. Wow, you put a lot of pressure on me there, George.
Yeah.
So just quickly, why did you become a pediatrician and then go on to be a gastroenterologist?
I think the real question is like, why did I become a doctor? So, I became a doctor.
That's three strikes against you: doctor, then pediatrician, then gastroenterologist.
Basically, if I would have put all that mind energy into the stock market, I'd probably be a billionaire by now. I became a doctor because my mother told me to, like all of us, right?
Yeah.
We became doctors.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then I said, I remember when I was in third year of medical school and I walked onto the medicine floor and that smell, and I was like, wow, I can't do this. That medicine smell was just like, there's no way I can do this. And, surgery just seemed like whatever. It was too intense. And OB was too intense for me. And so I said, kids don't smell as bad as adults do. Funny story, when during COVID, I actually worked the floors at the hospital because we had nothing doing in the office. So I actually went, after I almost died, I went back to the floors, and it was like deja vu. I walked onto the floor. I was like, oh my God, it still smells like that. I just can't stand the medicine smell. So that's why I went into pediatrics. And then since I missed the smell so much, I decided to go into GI. Because you know what they say, that shit is gold. So I became a pediatrician really because of the smell, I think. But I really love the kids because they're a lot of fun. The sad thing is that they come with their parents to the office. Right, George? Imagine how much better our day would be if like the 3-year-olds came by themselves.
That is true. Some of the parents are usually pretty good. Sometimes they're a little intense.
But true story, I really wasn't sure in residency whether I wanted to do general pediatrics or not. And so I had this mentor, a guy by the name of Barry Werschel, who's the head of Peds GI in Chicago, and he was the vice chair of pediatrics where I trained at SUNY Downstate, and he basically called me up one day. He goes, Tuvia, you're going to be a gastroenterologist. I said, okay, that sounds like fun, and he left Downstate and went to Montefiore, and then I became chief resident at Downstate. He called me up one day. He goes, Tuvia, so you're starting July 1st. You're going to be a pediatric gastroenterologist. And that's what I did. I just went to Montefiore, made a spot for me, and I became a pediatric gastroenterologist.
Well, Montefiore had a good program.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember training over there. I love the GI program. This was before you became a GI person. Unfortunately, I'm a couple of years older than you. Not by much.
Who was there then? Bill Spivak was then?
Spivak was in charge, and you had the Greek lady. I forget what her name is. And then
Mustafellas?
Was that?
Was it Mustafellas back then?
No, I forget who she was. And then the blonde lady, the one that lived in Manhattan. I forget what her name was.
Who was that? Who's blonde?
I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They were nice. Maybe I'll remember during the conversation.
So anyways, I did 3 years at Monty, and then I came out to Long Island to practice here at Winthrop.
Nice.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I got 2 consults for you today. I am in really severe abdominal pain today. I'm just recovering from COVID. My 88-year-old mom, who is Catholic, but as stubborn as a Jewish mom as you'll ever find, who said, like your mom, no, you're not going to be a computer engineer because that's just a hobby at the prep school. You go be a doctor or a lawyer like your dad. That way you can pay for a family to grow up. Thanks, Mom. She got COVID too.
Yeah.
And she won't take pills because she can't swallow pills.
At 88.
At 88, she's never been able to swallow pills.
Oh,
She
geez.
wasn't going to let me swab her nose because God knows what you're going to do with that swab. And
I know what I do with the swabs.
Yeah.
and then I watched the US who do they play today? Oh, US Iran, because I have to say that correctly. I can't say it Iran because then they'll yell at me. Match on TV, and we were winning 1-0, and we almost lost it in the last 3 minutes.
Oh.
I was done. I had diarrhea, constipation, and belly pain at the same time.
So you have
think I need,
IBS.
huh?
You
You
have
think?
IBS.
Oh yeah, I think I need an emergency scope.
Yeah. Yeah. And why don't you tell us what your day is like over at NYU now?
So I wait. I wait. It's NYU now.
I
So
know.
so I wake up in the morning. Let's see. At about I get up around 5:20, and I'd say like from 5:20 to 5:30 before I get out of bed, I look at my emails, and then I get up. I shower. I'm happy. I'm sure everybody appreciates that in the office. And I'm usually in the hospital somewhere around 6:45 every morning. So I'll make rounds first. And then I do procedures 3 days a week, usually first thing because the kids go first in the morning so that they don't have to fast. So we get the first slots. So we scope, I scope 3 days a week. And then once I'm finished in the hospital, I come to the office and then I see patients all day. And then I speak to you.
Yeah. Do you guys do like inpatient consults and stuff?
We do inpatient consults. So I'll go in first. So I get to the hospital at 6:45. I usually call the residents on my way in. If I'm concerned, I'll call and find out what's going on the floor. And then I'll go to the floor. I'll see patients if I have patients admitted, and then do my procedures. And then I'm off to the office.
Wow. It's a lot of, you guys do a lot of scopes in a day?
So it depends on the day. I mean, we do somewhere, like Wednesday's a short day. I only do 4 procedures. I only got enough time for 4 cases. But say on a Tuesday morning, I could do eight cases.
Wow.
And are they mostly upper?
So
Or
in peds, it's going to be mostly upper endoscopy. Remember that, we don't do like screening colonoscopies in pediatrics. So most of it is going to be upper endoscopies, but we do a fair number of colonoscopies. We have a lot of kids with IBD, unfortunately. And so, but we do a fair number.
Right.
Nothing compared to the adult world where they, if you drop your pants, forget it.
And I have an adult gastroenterologist friend. I think she does about 25, 30 a day screenings.
Right. So I don't know how they do that and they're not exhausted, but the adult guys literally, I mean, they just drop a scope, boom, 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 and they'll do 25, 30 cases.
I guess it's like a video game.
Right. Well, something like that, except it smells bad. True story. My daughter's a nurse in the hospital. So on her way out, she'll oftentimes stop in the endoscopy suite to say good morning or whatever. She walked in one morning and the patient just didn't prep and the stool was like piled to the sky. Okay. It was just like everywhere in the room. And she walked in, she goes, everything all right? I said, I want you to go home and tell your mother the amount of stool I have to go through just to put bread on the table. And you're welcome.
Yeah. So I guess our topic is, I'm so stressed that I need an endoscopy. Why is that?
Not the I'm so stressed, as my mother made me stressed, for God's sake. It all goes back to your mother.
I guess.
It is all about your mother, by the way. And hence I wish that the kids would come in, by themselves. But, I think, George, you tell me if you disagree with this. And we've talked about this before. I think the world has changed dramatically with COVID.
Right.
And, here on Long Island, it's just, when we were kids, we were dumb. We didn't know what was going on in the world, clueless. And it didn't matter to us. And we got up in the morning. We didn't worry about the mortgage. We had no idea about, what a recession was. We didn't care. Our job was to go to school and play ball. Okay. Yep. And I think with the advent of social media, every kid, can you imagine I can't imagine, asking my father for Hanukkah to go out and get me $1,000, $1,200 device that I would walk around with all day. And then, by the way, pay $50 to $75 a month in maintenance. You're talking about it, to have a phone costs about $2,000 a year, right? Something like that. All right. I can't imagine asking my father to give me something for $2,000 a year. I remember we got a Commodore 64. It was like, wow.
Wow. Yes.
Moly. And we played Cubert. Okay. Yeah. It was groundbreaking.
Yep. And
right?
Pong.
Huh?
Pong. Remember Pong?
Oh, Pong. Exactly. We were excited by that.
Bing, yeah. It was the best.
Bing. It was right. We were such simple-minded individuals.
Yeah.
But, I think today with, between the social media and then with everybody being locked up and not talking to each other and seeing each other, I think the amount of anxiety and stress has just, parents coming to see me and, kid has diarrhea, right? Diarrhea is a real problem. Take a kid with IBS who, every time they get nervous has got to run to the bathroom. That's a big problem because if a kid can't go out and have pizza with their friends, that is a problem. And the reason why that's a problem is because you see, kids need to go out and have pizza. They need to sit across from each other and they need to socialize and talk to each other. And they need to do it when they're adolescents because it teaches them how to interact with other people. And those lessons that they learn carry forward into conversations like we're having right now, carry forward into business dealings that they may have and relationships that they may have as they move on in their life. And if they don't go out for that slice of pizza, that's a problem.
Yeah. We're seeing a whole lot of mental health issues, stress, anxiety, depression. For us, they come in with belly pain or whatever, headaches. We try to work with them a little bit. And then if we can't, we send them to you.
And I thank you for that.
And we know it's all stress related. I know it's not an appendicitis, constipation, or whatever.
The human mind is amazing. It's an amazing thing, the human mind. And it can really wreak havoc on your body. It really, it really, really does. And listen, I tell the parents all the time, when I took my boards in the Marriott, did you take your PEDS boards in the Marriott Avenue? Yeah. Right? What's his name used to give it? Harvey Aegis. Do you remember Harvey?
Yeah.
Right. So Harvey used to proctor the test. Okay. And I remember at the end of 2 days of taking that board exam, there was no toilet paper left in the Marriott. Okay. Because you're looking at like 300 intelligent people, okay, taking a super hard test, and everybody had diarrhea because that's what smart people do. Okay. Yeah. We crap our brains out, pardon my French. Okay. And so, I think that that's normal. And so I try to tell these kids who come in and say, every time I get stressed, I have diarrhea. In fact, I tell them, you know what, you're doing better than most kids in your class because the only reason why you have diarrhea is because you're conscientious. The kid who doesn't care about failing a test, he doesn't have diarrhea. He doesn't have belly pain. He feels great all the time. It's the smarter kids that have IBS because they're worried. And guess what? They're getting an A anyways.
And so it seems to me that maybe there's like a bimodal distribution. There's the adolescent with abdominal pain that's stressed out. And then there's the younger kid with abdominal pain that's also stressed out, but not for the same reasons. So
Herb, I was giving you a compliment there, by the way.
Well, thank you.
About your diarrhea that, I was calling you intelligent.
Well, thank you. You're the second person that complimented today. So I'm assuming I'll be dead by the morning.
We'll send flowers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anything in particular you like, or?
Well, I had a very particular way I wanted to celebrate my funeral, but I can't share on air. Um, but um, but do you think there's a bimodal distribution? Because I also see it in the younger kids, like a 5, 7-year-old with periumbilical abdominal pain. It's not constipation. They go to the ER 2, 3 times. They do ultrasounds to rule out appendicitis. They do KUBs. They do this test. They do that test, and the mom still shows up. No,
Herb,
still having pain.
I'm gonna blow your mind right now. How about if I told you that anxiety I see in kids who are 1 month old?
Wow.
Right? You ever see a kid who's got feeding aversion, and you've got a stressed out mom, and every time she picks the baby up, the baby starts to cry and has it and refuses the bottle?
Yes.
That's anxiety. That's because babies and children, okay, are anxiety meters. You can have a fight with your spouse, okay, and your kid could be around the globe and they know it already. They can pick up on it. They have a sixth sense. And I tell this to parents, when you pick up that baby, if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're suffering from postpartum depression, which is something that I ask all the new mothers in my practice, how you doing? No, how are you doing? Okay, because if they're stressed, if they're suffering with postpartum depression, that baby picks up on it and that baby's miserable. And so it starts even as young as that at that point, at a month of age. And so, and then we see it. I mean, unfortunately, we see parents who are, getting divorced and the kids are being tossed around like a doll. Okay. And those kids will come in here and tell me that, oh, my belly hurts. My belly hurts when I'm at home, but in school, I feel fine. And then I saw a kid today who every time the kid gets on the bus in the morning, the kid has abdominal pain. So, I think we see stress and anxiety throughout all the ages.
And unfortunately, how do you know it's not something more serious? We've had kids that complained of belly pain. They ended up with, inflammatory bowel disease. You had another one that had belly pain. He had a liver tumor. Another one, right now she's being admitted. She's in the hospital with LFTs of like 800. We don't even know what she has yet.
You didn't send that patient to me, George.
She's in the hospital now. So, I always tell the residents, when you hear hoofbeats, it's probably a horse. But sometimes a zebra will come in. And when it does, you have to answer the door.
100%. And you have to be careful because, we had a previous resident of ours who actually moved to, who's a gastroenterologist now at Columbus. And he actually published a paper on how stress changes the gut microbiota.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's not a simple thing like, oh, I'm stressed out, you'll be fine. No, you could be stressed out and certainly you can have disease, just because you have stress doesn't mean that you're perfectly fine. And so we always work everybody up, I talked about this today with, I had a resident with me today. I saw a kid who had the flu and had a tremendous amount of Advil. And I really think that the kid has NSAID-induced gastritis. Okay. But the resident said to me, well, what do you think about possibly pancreatitis and this like that? And we talked about, decision bias, where we walk into a room and we say to ourselves, oh, this patient has mental illness. And we just go straight down, we tunnel, we just go straight down that path and we don't think about anything else. And you really, like George was saying, you still gotta listen for the hook beats because, you gotta make sure that you're not missing the kid with celiac, the great masquerader. You may have IBS, but we see plenty of kids with IBS and IBD together. I see that all the time. Kids who come in, they've got Crohn's disease, so they got diarrhea. We treat their Crohn's. Their numbers are perfectly normal, but they still have diarrhea because they've got stress and IBS like everybody else. And so, and vice versa. So you have to think, you can't just think down, one path. You gotta have an open mind and think about everything else.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in on a kid who's got periumbilical pain. So, I'm going to step back for, I think one vital sign of pediatrics that people forget now with all this technology that we have is the growth curve. So the growth curve tells a lot of stories. There's the best dashboard for pediatrics. A kid that's growing properly probably doesn't have a very severe disease. And a kid that stops growing at any point has something really serious. It could just be severe anxiety or depression. You're not going to find a tumor or something that what we would think of organic. Um, but what a kid that's growth curve is normal. The belly pain doesn't wake him up in the middle of the night. He's still attending school. Gets better without taking any medications, but still complains. What's a reasonable workup for that kid?
So I always say this. I have a failure to thrive lecture that I give, and I tell I speak to residents, speak to physicians. The best thing that came out of EMR, and I hate the damn EMR, but the best thing that came out of EMR is the growth chart.
Yes.
Okay, because you hit a button and boom, it pops up, and the dots are every dot is in the right place, as opposed to used to be years ago. You remember you'd start off and then somewhere along the way, oops, I made a mistake. And then you get this growth chart. By the time it is 13, you have 700 dots. You don't even know where you are. The growth chart is fantastic. It takes 2 seconds to hit the button and boom. And just by looking at that growth chart, exactly what you said, if you've got good growth, and I tell this to the residents, tell this to the patients even, parent comes in to see me with a baby who's screaming and crying, et cetera, et cetera. I saw a kid here today, double their birth weight. The kid's 2 months old. I said to the mother, your kid is fantastic, perfectly healthy. Okay. The mother has to go. The kid, okay. But the growth is essential in pediatrics. It is what we look for.
I remember being trained that looking for inflammatory bowel disease, you should look at the growth charts, and they're usually associated with short stature. Now I've been looking at all the kids that have inflammatory bowel disease. They don't have short stature and they don't have failure to thrive. Why is that?
Why? Because parents are super, super sensitive to their kids' complaints.
Right.
We see kids here too early for IBD.
Right.
I can tell you, I've seen, and this happens all the time. I have a kid now. The labs are perfectly normal. In fact, I tell the father, and the kid's a very intense kid. I said to the father, your kid has IBS. CBC is normal. LFTs are normal. ESR is normal. CRP is normal. We sent off a calprotectin, a fecal calprotectin. It was 234. Honestly, not even a super high number, because we see kids who have calprotectins of 3,000. Okay, guess what? We scoped him. The kid has early IBD. He had an ulcer on his ileocecal valve. He had some cecal inflammation, and the kid's got really early onset IBD. Now he has IBS also, but he's got early onset IBD, and that's because the parents are super zoned in. And so we don't see those kids anymore where it takes 6 months, a year for them to come to see us. These kids are in our office before they even finish wiping their tush.
Yeah. So I guess it's access to care. There's more access to care now.
It's more access to care. And I think that, I think we're very, very zoned in. I think when I was a kid, it's funny, my sister had appendicitis when she was like 12. To this day, we joke around. It's amazing that she didn't die, because my parents used to always tell us, go to school, you're fine, and don't let the school nurse call me. I don't want to hear from you. You're fine. But
Yeah.
today, the kid farts and boom, come pick up your son, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Yep. The only observation of about the growth curves, I do a lot of locum tenens work, and when you open the first chart and you look at the growth curve of any patient, and it looks like a roller coaster, you're in for a world of hurt for those days you're going to be in that practice, because that practice has got no quality, zero quality. The doctor's asleep at the wheel, and it's going to be miserable for however many days you're going to be there.
But can I tell you something? With a chart like that, food insecurity.
Yes, but this is where kids' head circumference shrinks from one date to another. Their height shrinks. It's not even growth.
Yeah.
It looks like this, like whatever. They were 40 pounds, then they were 28 pounds, and they were 45 pounds, and At some point, they were 40 inches, but now they're only 37 inches.
Because nobody's looking, they're just inputting data and not seeing.
Right, that means nobody's paying attention to this.
Nobody's
garbage
paying
out.
attention. And the physician is not looking at the growth curves like he should be, or she should be, before he goes to see the patient.
Correct.
And, oh, the baby looks healthy. He goes through his spiel of, what's that? We're supposed to be doing healthy kids
Right,
or whatever.
future stuff.
Bright future stuff.
Yeah.
You know, says that I did all the bright future stuff and send the baby out after the vaccines, and never knows what quality is going on. But that's an indicator of good health, but also
Yes.
good quality in a practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, belly pain is very difficult, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Do you scope a lot, like upper GIs? Is that
So I'll tell you, you know, I would say that we scope probably less than we scope around somewhere around 5%, 5 to 7% of our practice gets scoped, which is not a very big number.
Oh.
And I think that's because, well, first of all, we follow the guidelines, but also, you know, I think that, you know, putting somebody's kid to sleep is not a simple thing. You know, doing an endoscopy for me is like brushing my teeth. Okay. It's funny to me, you know, I have parents who come in, there's nothing wrong with their kid. We've done a full exam, we've done labs, we've done the kid's growth chart is beautiful. We've done ultrasounds, which is non-invasive. I never have a problem doing an ultrasound. You know what? It's a relatively inexpensive test and it's non-invasive, you know, but, you know, taking somebody's kid and putting him to sleep it's a big deal. You know, the risk of the procedure itself is not a big deal, but, you know, you throw in the anesthesia and the kid's an asthmatic, et cetera, you know, things happen. And so I think we're a little bit conservative in who we scope. We really try to follow the guidelines and scope patients who need it. But I have parents who come in and they insist that their kid have an endoscopy.
Right.
Okay. And I can tell you 99.9% of the time, that scope is totally normal.
Do the symptoms go away after the scope?
I'm sorry?
Do the symptoms go away after the
You know something? Sometimes they do.
therapeutic scope? You did your job.
It's a therapeutic scope. You're right. But, you know, I always tell parents, they tell me, why don't you scope my kid? I say, you know what? I want to do to your kid what I would do to my kid. And I don't think that I would scope my kid in this situation.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not a big deal to do an endoscopy. I mean, is it a safe procedure? I mean, the risk from an endoscopy is approximately, you know, 1 in 1,000 with bleeding and bowel perforation. But, you know, when we tell parents that, that's like playing Russian roulette. That means that's the statistical number that's out there. It just means that 1 in 1,000 cases has a problem. It's a real number.
Yeah. You don't want to be that one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I framed that a little differently for patients when I'm not sure that they should be doing the procedure they're asking for. You know, so if it's 1 in 1,000, I would say, well, if you're going to watch a football game and, you know, 50 persons in that stadium that holds 50,000 was going to end up in the ICU after the game, would you go with your kid?
I don't watch football.
Well,
I gave up on the Jets a long time ago.
Make it soccer, but they understand that analogy. If I told you it was going to be a sharpshooter at an event that holds 50,000 persons, and there's going to be 50 persons shot, would you take your kid?
They probably wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
That's a risk you're taking.
Right.
I mean,
I think that, you know, it's a big problem because we deal with an educated population, but they really don't necessarily truly understand what goes on, you know, and so they read about it online and they go Google it. They come in with a diagnosis. Oh, I read in Google that my kid can have, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I'd say to them, listen, I'm happy to talk about it. Let's work through it. But let's think this through before we start running to do invasive procedures. And certainly there's a place for that. I mean,
right.
You know, kids need procedures, unfortunately. You know, we have a large IBD population. I mean, those kids get, you know, I scoped the kid this morning, has terrible colitis. He needs a procedure.
Yeah. Do you think Google has something to do with all the stress that people have?
I think access to information that is not well understood, okay, makes people very, very, turns them into hypochondriacs.
Right. Well, if you think about it, like when you were in medical school, and medical students suffer of that now, they're reading their textbook.
Yeah.
And everything that they read, they got that disease.
You didn't have a tapeworm when you were in medical school?
I thought I had syphilis because I got this rash.
Yeah.
And hold on, and
It wasn't syphilis. I couldn't even find a partner, but somehow I thought I had syphilis.
You know, your mind can really, really,
right,
do
medical
tricks on you.
studentitis.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now everybody seems to have that.
Right.
At least as a medical student, you can rationalize, you can deduct, you can think it out, talk it out. But as a parent, they
But I
see
will say this: there are many parents who, go on Google and said, listen, I was on Google, I put my kid's symptoms in, and I think my kid has this. And you know what?
Yeah, right.
They're right. So in some ways, it may be beneficial. Maybe that's why these parents are coming in with early IBD.
Could be. So I have a different perspective, and the smell of the general ward in the hospitals would just nauseate me too. That there's just I don't know what if it's a chemical they use to clean, or is it?
It's the melanine.
It is. It's just a smell that just doesn't ever leave you. But I loved internal medicine because it's intellectually a real challenge. Yet I realized that a lot of the patients in internal medicine practice are malingering, and they have a lot of abdominal complaints. And you tear your hair out trying to figure out what's wrong with them. And when you finally say, well, I think, Mrs. Jones, it's time to talk about what's going on in your family, or maybe talk to a psychologist, they cuss you out, they leave the practice, and they move on to another office to get worked up again. And so, and there was no Google back then. So the abdominal pain was there, and it was also in the adults way before Google. I don't know how prevalent it was, right? Because I wasn't practicing pediatrics back then, so I don't know how common it was.
Think about it this way, all kids, when they come in, they all tell you that, the little kids specifically, they tell you, where does your belly, you say, where does your belly hurt? Oh, it hurts in my belly button. And the reason why is because that is a localizable place on your body, right? Kids don't feel like left upper quadrant pain. It's got no landmarks, but they always go, oh, my belly hurts around my belly button. And that's why everybody complains, right? I mean, for the most part, when you're going to malinger, you think about your belly. You don't go, oh, my left toe hurts,
Yes.
because then you have gout. But the abdomen is, the GI tract is, everybody blames the gastroenterologist. What can I tell you?
Yeah, I guess.
I feel like everybody blames me. Pulmonary blames me. ENT blames me. The parents blame me. My mother blames me.
What's interesting, if somebody can put in their symptoms on Google, find out what they have, why do they even need to see you?
I ask myself that every day.
Well, actually, my point with this is I had a friend, I actually played in a band with him. He was a computer guy. And I was doing some stuff. A hard drive of mine was broken. I looked on Google that you can put it in a freezer and freeze it. And then you could redo it and get it to work to get the information off. And I had asked him that question. He says, yeah, you can do that. I looked it up on Google. I said, if I can look it up on Google, why do I even have, why do you exist, you computer people? You know what his answer was? Well, did you do anything? I said, no, I push the enter key and tell you to do it. I guess that's what our job is now.
Well, I mean,
you have this or you don't have this.
I think our job is really to help parents think it through. We're also there to hold their hand. There's an emotional component to medicine.
Right.
And I think that parents, well, I mean, you must see this, loyalty doesn't exist anymore. That's the truth. But at the end of the day, I think parents do value physicians who truly care about their children.
That's true.
And that's what parents need. They need somebody, they go into an office and there's somebody there who listens and cares about their children. who goes home at night and thinks about it. I sleep with a pad at my bedside. Honestly, I'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and write down an idea. Now I may be a little bit nuts, okay, but and that's because I think that physicians who care think about their patients after they leave the office and they come back into the office, and I think parents value that.
Yes.
That they do.
And Google can't do that for you.
No.
Let me ask George. Let me ask you a question. Since we talked a lot about stress this evening, you seeing a lot of eating disorders?
We do see a lot of eating disorders.
You think more so now than ever before?
I think so. And that's all social media related.
All social media.
Because look, everybody on social media is perfect. His body.
Everybody, it's a big problem. We're
Yeah.
seeing a tremendous amount of eating disorders. I don't remember seeing this many eating disorders before.
No.
The impact of social media on our kids is huge. And I'll tell you, my kid, my youngest is 14. He goes to a private Jewish school, and actually they have a rule in the high school that the kids can't have a smartphone.
That's good.
And they all have flip phones. And I have to tell you something. This is the best thing that I've ever seen. At first he was really upset about it, but overall, he's actually happy about it. And I think that we as adults should probably try to push our kids off of social media to protect.
Well, it's amazing with the social media. I used to see them. It used to be in 8th grade. Then the iPhone was on 7th grade, 6th grade. Now I'm seeing the little kids use it. 12 months of age, they're flipping through YouTube.
I had a kid today in the office. He was moving through YouTube like it was unbelievable. The kid could probably operate a nuclear power plant the way he was handling that iPhone.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what these kids are going to be in the future, but
Well,
I don't know.
I think also, George, to answer the reason why pediatrics will never stop being a practice style, not only because it's a growth market. There's only 3.5 million babies being born. Somebody's going to look at them. But also the same reason that drives a parent to go to Google is the reason that they'll go to the physician. And that's the anxiety. They're
Yes.
worried. So they go to Google, then they go, what if I'm wrong? I don't really know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I just should give him, I don't know, a little milk in my Lanta and the tummy ache will go away. But what if I'm wrong? It's my kid.
Right.
Oh, I better go in the office and have him tell me that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, I've seen that over and over again where
And
they
that
come in thinking what they had, and I look
and
at
they
them,
might even be right on the
many
diagnosis,
times they're right.
but they need the reassurance and need to be told, this is how I treat it, and this is when you call me back. This is when you start worrying.
Mhm.
And the other thing I found in the exam room over and over again, you have to be kind. You have to have a little perspective. When you're a parent of a young kid and it's your first go around, even if you're a pediatrician, it is a really scary ride. And then you look back on it 5-10 years and you're like, I can't believe I was worrying about that. I mean, that was just totally inconsequential in the life of that child and my life.
Yeah.
But I tell the parents, my analogy is, yeah, okay, your beautiful 6-month-old has a diaper rash. I don't think the baby's hurt too much. It gets better really fast. And the mom's horrified. I mean, it's like the world's gonna end. And I'm like, let's keep our perspective hat on. Let's think about when this little girl's 16 and she takes the SUV out on her first date. You're gonna need a bottle of wine and lots of antacids, because every minute that she's gone, you're gonna be really having some really bad diarrhea. I mean, that's another level of worrying. And God forbid that she's 5 minutes late, because you will be out in your car driving around the neighborhood looking for your other car.
Yeah.
And they look at me like, and I said, no, it's true. Every age is challenging. It's just different dangers, different challenges. And for the grace of God, they all survive to have kids of their own to get their own punishment.
Yeah. Little kids, little problems, big kids, bigger problems.
But that's what it is. Parenting is tough. It's a really tough game.
It is life. It is life changing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And before you have a child, it's just about, you and your partner. After that, there is no you anymore.
No.
You're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to change some kid's diaper, and they're screaming and they're yelling and you haven't had a chance to go to the bathroom and, you know, you need a shower and, you know, that's it. Life is different. You can't just drop everything, you know, and go to the movies. You got to figure out what you're going to do. And so,
it's a beautiful experience, but it's an intense experience, and it takes time to get used to that intensity. And some people never master it.
And I also think that these mom groups, these parenting groups and mom groups, they create a lot of stress for parents, because how many times have you seen people come in with these algorithms and formulas and how to do this and how to do that and what's the best thing? It's just like
I
it
think
blows my mind.
I think they do and they don't, but you know, I think that there's some people out there that give them good information. You know, it's like some of the parents with like say celiac disease, and they go on the celiac forums and they talk about how they can't be in a room with wallpaper because the wallpaper's got, you know, flour-based paste on the back of it. And I tell parents, I go, listen, if your kid's eating the wallpaper, we got big problems.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, but so some of the groups, yes, but some of the groups actually provide a lot of good information. I tell parents, I go, just take it with a grain of salt, you know, just, you gotta just, you know, sift that through the information. Okay. And the other thing, I'll show you what I have in my office, which you'll love this. I don't know if you've seen this book in when the last time
Yeah.
Okay. This is a great book. I don't know if you could get it, but this was like great information back in the day. Okay. And I think a lot of this still holds true. I think even where he says that, you know, you should basically smack your kid, but, you know, he had some interesting ideas, Dr. Spock, but, you know, it was a great reference manual for new parents because, you know, parents, you know, they go from being, it's like going from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Like you said, you know, like all of a sudden your life is totally different. And what do you do with this thing? You know, like it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and the kid's screaming his head off. You've changed a diaper, you've bathed them, you've given them a bottle, and you can't get them to settle down. It's life changing.
And they don't answer any questions.
No.
You ask them what hurts, they still cry. Do you hungry? They still cry.
I remember when my younger son was like 3 or 4 weeks old, the kid had reflux and colic. So we went to the office, saw 3 doctors in the office, my office, plus me, plus my wife, who's a pediatrician. So we're up to 5. Yeah, he has a little reflux, a little colic, blah, blah, blah. We go home. The grandmother, my wife's mother, says, what kind of people are you? You're letting this baby suffer like this? What do? Okay, let's go to the emergency room where my wife works. We go to the ER. This sees my wife again, the doctor that's working. There were 2 doctors working, and then somebody that was leaving, another 3 doctors. And they all, you got reflux and colic, you'll be fine, don't worry. Imagine. And that's a person that's a pediatrician.
It's, listen,
It's stressful. It's stressful.
I one night drove at 3 o'clock, couldn't get my daughter to stop crying. She was like 5, 6 months old. I couldn't take it anymore. I put her in the car at like 3 o'clock in the morning. We went to Pathmark, 24-hour Pathmark. They must have thought I was nuts, but the only way I could stop her from crying was driving around in the car.
Yeah.
Well, they did make a McDonald's commercial like that.
You know what was painful about that experience is that often those kids will fall asleep in the car ride, and as soon as you open the garage door, they're awake again.
Yeah. Well, I remember working in the ER. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody come in with this little baby crying, they say, and you look at him, he looks perfectly fine. The drive over, the colic got better.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I think people read a lot. Now there's so much information. You gotta be stressed. Because how do you know it's not something else?
You don't.
You know?
Listen, I had it last night actually, I was on call last night. I got a phone call from her mother. She for sure went online. You know, the kid vomited and she's like, you know, I think it may be a malrotation and I'm not sure if it's bilious or not. And he vomited 3 times. You know, I mean, like,
can I send you the picture of the puke?
Trust me, I've gotten pictures of poop.
Oh yeah, me too. That's a common event.
I mean, pictures of their kids. If I would get pulled over, I got pictures. I mean, they would arrest me. Anyways, what are you supposed to do? So sometimes it works against the parent because now here we are, it's the middle of the night, malrotation. You know what, ma'am, I can't answer the question. Go to the emergency room.
Yeah. I think the three of us at least have the experience card that we can pull. But the younger doctors, I see them tripping when they get cases like this. It could be a zebra, but it's probably not. And they don't know. And then the mother says, but how do you know? And that just sends all alarms off, just like my mother-in-law did to my wife.
Yeah.
And then they start looking and chasing and finding and making everybody crazy.
See, it all goes back to the mothers.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the mother. That's
I don't know. How do we fix this problem? I don't think it's fixable.
I think it's a rite of passage for parents. I always say to parents, like, when the kid turns 1, I go, you see, we survived the year. I was never worried about the baby, but look how far we've come. And they really are different people from when they started, coming to see me at 2 weeks of age with a new baby. And when they leave to practice, when they're now a year old and all their issues are done, we evolve, we learn from our experiences. And the same is true with IBS. The same holds true with irritable bowel syndrome. I tell kids, as you go through life's experiences and you see that you've done well on a test, you've done well in that social situation, you can then have the next social situation, the next test, and say, hey, listen, I did okay on the last one. I'm going to do okay in the right. I mean, and that's how we evolve.
Yeah.
I think we as pediatricians are responsible. And I'm going to say this, I love community pediatricians. I have a lifestyle I have because of the support of community pediatricians in all the communities I've worked in. So there's nobody that I love more than this earth. But we don't celebrate our wins. We should be having a bell that we ring and a clapping, when that baby turns 4 months. He's left the newborn stage and is doing perfectly well. And that encouragement means a ton to the parents because now someone's validated that they're great parents. When they get to be toddlers and they're walking, we should be clapping. We should be giving them a round of applause for the work they've done because it's hard work. When they get that hepatitis B vaccine and they're not going to have liver cancer, we should be ringing a bell and putting a star on our wall, one less cancer that we will see on this humanity. When we finish the HPV series, another bell gets rung and another star on that wall. Imagine just your practice, George. How many thousands of kids will not see cervical, laryngeal, liver cancer because of the vaccines that they received, but we don't celebrate it.
And
We don't tell the
people don't
parents
talk
what
about
great
it
job
like
they're
that.
doing.
They don't talk about it like that. It's just a shot that you need to go to school.
But that's our fault because we
I
have
know.
that narrative.
Dismiss.
You could put a bell on the wall and the stars and ring it and say, Mrs. Jones' baby's 4 months. Wow, she's doing a great job. And everybody would be happy. We need to celebrate these wins for our kids and for their parents so that they know that they're doing well. Because no one tells them they're doing well. They just tell, excuse me, because we're a GI lecture, I can say this. We just crap on the humanity today. We set these expectations and we never celebrate their wins.
I guess.
We need to celebrate the parents' wins. They need someone in their corner. I don't know what you think. Do we celebrate the wins enough?
You make a TikTok channel celebrating people. I draw the line on that. I cannot do that kind of stuff.
No, I don't want to be in TikTok and I don't want to be on
I see a lot of doctors. I think it's just they look foolish.
Well, there's
I don't disagree with what he's saying. I mean, I think that we need to celebrate our wins as pediatricians because nobody celebrates it for us. How's that?
Oh, that's true.
Yes, but when
the time and the effort, the sleepless nights that we put in, the nights that we're up worrying about other people's children, but we're not worrying about our own, the dinners that we miss, the late hours, the early hours, the stress, the missed everything. I think that's all taken for granted because, I paid my $25 copay and well, that's your job. And I think that being a physician is not really a job. And I say this in both the positive and the negative, because I tell the residents like this: if you want to be a good doctor, being a good doctor is not a job. Being a good doctor is a lifestyle. Okay, good doctors live it. They don't just pop in at 9 and leave at 5. Okay, and I think a lot of us get hurt because patients come into the office, like you said, and they see me on a Monday, they see the next person on Tuesday, the third person on Wednesday. I mean, heck, I've seen patients in their third or fourth opinion. And I'll say to them, I said, you've seen 3 other good gastroenterologists. I got nothing else to offer, because it's just, it's a little bit crazy. And, I think that we deserve a certain degree of recognition by our patients for all the time and the effort. My roommate from college always says this. I spoke at my kid's bar mitzvah, and he said, when we were all going out on Saturday nights, your dad was studying for his chemistry file. He's just sit there with the organic chemistry models. You don't realize how hard your dad worked to get to this point. And I think that patients see us and take it for granted. And
That's true.
That we worked our, tushes off to get where we are so that we can help their kid. And so how about somebody ring our bell?
Yeah.
Well, I think when you celebrate the parents win, you're celebrating. So to me, let me explain myself, because I agree with everything you said. But to me, you can't win in pediatrics if you don't have the kid, the parents, and the pediatrician in the same team. The moment there's friction there, I tell the parent to leave, go seek another pediatrician, because we need to have good communication and teamwork. And there's plenty of great pediatricians. Find one that you like. That's key. But when all 3 of us are working and worrying about that kid and loving that kid, and we want success for that kid, and we get a win, we should be high-fiving and clapping in that room, because we're all winning and society's winning. And we don't. We just go like, oh, it's just a shot.
Yeah.
It's just another reflux, or that algorithm reflux. That's going to happen when he walks. Yeah, but look at the difference we made in that family's life until that kid stopped refluxing. Look at the difference. But we don't say about it. We don't tell, and the parents, nobody's in their corner. Their grandmothers are always harassing the parents. We did it this way. Did that. It's true.
Yeah. What? Speaking of reflux and grandparents, with my son, we did see one more person. We did see a pediatric gastroenterologist, and I remember the attending's name now, Robin Sokolov.
Oh,
my attending, and then she came over to Winthrop.
She did. Now she's now in the city.
Yeah. So then, she sat us down, said, you got a little reflux, you got a little colic, you'll be fine. Take Alimentum. We went home, told my mother-in-law the story. Problem's gone. The kid's still doing a reflux, but she stopped because the specialist said it was okay. Not the ER guys, not the general guys.
The blessing of the specialist goes a long way.
It does.
So what do you do when somebody asks you, what should I start as solids with my 4-month-old baby?
What do I start?
Yeah.
Well, the fact that most of us start with baby cereal, but the fact that you start with baby cereal is just because my mother did it, her mother did it, her mother's mother did it, her mother's mother's mother did it. It's really, you don't have to start with baby cereal. You can start your kid with chicken. It's fine. The beauty about baby cereal is that it's very malleable and you can easily change its viscosity, by either thinning it out or thickening it up depending on how you make it. So I think most of us start with baby cereal, but I use a lot of cereal in the bottles when I give kids, formula. I'll add cereal, I'll thicken it up. So those babies, I actually start on sweet potato. Baby cereal tastes like dirt. I don't know if you've ever tried like baby oatmeal cereal. It's disgusting.
No.
Okay. In fact, when I start baby cereal, I tell parents, I want you to make a little bit of baby cereal. And most of my patients are Italian. So I tell them, it's like making cement. You know how to do it, right? And so, so I tell them, make a little bit of baby cereal, take a little bit on a spoon, and dip it in some applesauce. Okay, because at least the applesauce does 2 things, and this is why I use applesauce. Number one, it gives it a little bit of a sweet taste, but also it's got a tardiness. And one of the speech therapists taught me many, many years ago that tardy foods trigger a swallow. And so when you first start feeding, okay, right, when you eat with a nipple, the way you do is you thrust your tongue forward, right, and you bring it back over your palate and you milk the nipple, right? But when you need to eat with a spoon, you need to sort of like shovel it back. And so by triggering that swallow reflex, you teach that baby how to swallow. So that's why I use applesauce. But otherwise, if I'm not doing that, I use sweet potato because I like it. But you can
Okay. Does the sweet potato have the same tart as the apples?
It does not.
Okay.
It
How
depends
about you,
on the
George? What's
potatoes
your
you're eating. Huh?
what's your recommendation?
I mean, I guess I'm old school. We did it the way the grandmothers did it, and everybody did it because that's what they accept.
Okay,
Those
because
fruit,
my
vegetables,
my
whatever.
point to this, and I really appreciated your points. I didn't know about the tartness. That's a great little.
But by the way, with kids with try this, George, with kids who have some difficult feeding, I take Marino's ices, lemon ices. You know the Marino's lemon ice?
Yeah.
And you can shave a little bit of the Marino's lemon ices and it's tart. And cold foods also trigger swallows. So you can have the parents practice with a little bit of shaved lemon ice.
Okay, that's great. Those are great tips.
Yeah.
But what I love the most about the two things that you said, which is my standard answer: ask your mother, because whatever I tell you to do, your mother's going to say I'm wrong, and then I'm going to lose you as a patient. So just go back to your mother and say, Mom, what should I start the baby with? She'll be very happy. She'll tell you whatever she started you with. You grew up, you had babies, the baby will be fine. You'll keep coming back to see me.
Although I will tell you that, sometimes these grandparents do get a little bit in the way. And I tell parents sometimes, now it's your time to figure it out. You can't screw it up. Okay. As I tell them, I go, look, your husband survived, right? His parenthood, right? He survived his mother. This baby's going to survive you too. Okay.
Yes.
It's very hard to screw it up. Do what you want to do. It's your baby. You want to feed them sweet potato? Go on. You want to feed them string beans? Rock on, have a good time. If your mother wants you to feed the baby, I don't know, pastina, I mean, that's your decision. It's not your mother's decision. If that's what she wants, tell your mother to have more children. They're doing amazing things these days.
And the grandmothers never write you nasty letters?
They love me, the grandmothers. You know why? Because I tell the grandmothers at 6 months of age, I give the babies ground up chicken soup. And I tell the grandmothers, you should make some chicken soup for the baby. They love it.
Yeah.
Nothing makes them happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get the grandmothers and the daughter couples coming in all the time. And the daughter always knows everything. The grandmother doesn't know anything. So the grandmother's always sitting quiet. Then we're talking. And I would go, hey, grandma, what do you think? And the grandma would say exactly what I would say. So I would do the same thing. And I would tell the daughter, listen to grandma. She really knows. And before I had children, I used to see patients. Sometimes I didn't even know what was going on. And I'd say, hey, grandma, what do you think? And the grandma would tell me the answer.
Yeah.
So, and then it creates a little bond between now the mother and the grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the beauty of the exam room.
Yeah. Relationships.
Yes.
Hey, George, when you took your boards, did you have children already?
No.
So I found that I learned all my developmental pediatrics for my boards. I had from my daughter. I had my daughter before I took the boards. I learned everything from my kids.
It was very difficult. They had to memorize everything and you got it wrong. Yeah.
Same thing with grandma. She knows all the answers. She raised kids.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Do you have any other words of wisdom for us?
I think pediatrics is great, and I think pediatric GI is even greater.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. We do have the best job in the world. We're not respected, unfortunately, by a lot of entities, insurance companies, hospitals. But if you really think about it, a hospital cannot survive without its pediatric department. Why is that? Do you know why?
They got to serve the community.
Exactly. So they come in, the kid is born, they grows up, they go to the emergency room, they go to the specialist, they get admitted. Then the mother, she gets sick, she goes to the internist at the hospital, the community hospital. Then it goes to the grandfather and the grandmother. The whole circle of life starts with peds. That's why any hospital that doesn't have a pediatric department ultimately dies, even though it doesn't make as much money.
Agreed.
Yep.
And our floor doesn't smell as bad as the medicine floor.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true. Okay, fellas. Anything else anybody want to share? Not a cough.
Yeah, I don't want to share
COVID
my
cough.
cough. I'm sorry.
COVID cough.
Yeah.
All right. So it was a pleasure talking to you.
This was great.
This was a lot of fun. We try to get that physician's lounge theme back. We lost it. Nobody goes to the lounge anymore. Or if they do, they go to get a bagel and they run away. Nobody talks.
Bagels aren't as good as they used to be.
I don't know if it's about that, but they just go and they leave and nobody hangs out there. Grand rounds is in virtual nowadays. You don't even talk to the nurses when you go to the hospital or the residents. You just type a note and somebody will call you maybe. I don't know. The relationships, I think, is very, very important. We got to come back to relationships.
I actually said that the other day in the faculty meeting. I miss grand rounds in person. I think that it's important for people, to come in and for me to see people and they see me. Oh, and by the way, we need that just the same way that the kids need the social interaction. We all need it.
Correct.
Yeah. And it led to great care because those side consults,
Yeah.
Hey, you're seeing Jimmy, but I don't know, he's still not gaining weight. I don't know what we're missing.
Yeah.
And somewhere a light bulb would turn on. Now that the conversation doesn't happen, it's just dictated into some EMR system that spits out the same garbage day after day. And I can't even tell what I have a lot of great GIs in town here in Northern Virginia, but I can't tell what they're doing. I can't tell because it's all an epic and I can't tell what they're doing.
Yeah. That's sad.
We're
going to
even
forge forward. We're going to still do what we know.
Even that simple, remember the good old days when you would get a letter from the consultant, he was in front of yours, he would scratch your name out and say Herb and put some little note, I haven't seen you in a while. That meant a lot.
Personal touch.
Yeah. You can't do that with Epic.
Yep.
It's all done.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there'll be a brighter day coming.
It'll be fine. All right, guys.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has really been very enjoyable.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been a production of the Pediatric Lounge. On the show notes, you will find links to our co-host and other important notes, as well as a timetable of the topics discussed today. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a great review as it helps us greatly. In the meantime, we will see you next week. The Pediatric Lounge. The conversations are not intended as medical advice, and the opinions expressed are solely those of the host and the guest.